Culture is like an avenue to who you are. Peace. Culture is like, I studied this guy, Dr. Asa G. Hilliard, and he said culture is like an avenue to who you are. So your culture, or any culture that you embrace, is like an avenue to who you will become. I was listening to an interview yesterday, and they were talking about interracial dating or marriage, and how, to each his own, but the person who leaves their culture to marry outside of their culture, if they're honest with themselves, then they're saying, okay, I'll forsake this culture. Not forsake this culture, because some of them try to blend the two cultures. But in our culture, we don't have time for that because we're so underwater. But there are those that leave their culture to be with us, and they forsake their culture and embrace our culture, and then are down for the culture. I don't believe that, but I understand the argument. But the reason I wanted to do this quick rant was the culture that you embrace, whether it be your true African culture, and you can pick one because there are hundreds to embrace, or African American culture, because there has been a culture established in this country by enslaved Africans, or the so-called African American. The African American culture I see, which is largely influenced by America itself and the powers to be there inside America, is not a culture that I would want to give my children. I wouldn't want to give it to my sons. So therefore, I wouldn't want it for me. But like I said, culture is an avenue. So if one decides to go down that avenue, you have a more clear view of where you're going because you see what it reaps. Now, there are some things in the African American culture, some groups, some facets, a lot of success, plenty. But comparatively speaking, the culture promoted as African American culture it's a caricature. It's certain foods, it's dancing, tough guy, womanizer, single parent household, all that type of stuff. African American culture. We can define African American culture, or create or reinvent African American culture, or we can embrace African culture. After all, African culture is our culture. African culture, that avenue, you can't see as far because you actually have to read and study, travel to embrace the culture, to know the culture, to begin to embrace it. But what historically can be shown about African culture and what kind of person that produces, because culture produces the person, I could see a lot more in African culture that I would want to give to my sons to become. Each one is an individual, and we are who we are inside. But the culture is the avenue. If the person is the car, if the being is the car, culture is the avenue. You need both to get to where you're going and who you're going to be. MOSI Rants. Peace, black people.